Remember the big podcast boom of like the pandemic 2020, 2021-ish? Well, it's September 2025 and a lot has changed in the world of audio. Is podcasting still the unstoppable force we thought it was, or are new sounds emerging that are changing the game entirely? Today, we're going to dive deep into the surprising truth about the future of what you're listening to. Welcome to Abbey, the podcast lady. This is the show where we break down the world of podcasting and talk about where it's been and where it's headed and how you can make it work for you. I'm Abbey. I'm a podcast producer, a consultant, and a guide through this ever-evolving podcasting landscape. Today, we're digging into the big question, is podcasting still growing in 2025? If you've been in the podcasting world for a while, you've probably heard people predicting the podcast bubble is going to burst. There's too many podcasts. It's oversaturated. And if you're newer, you might wonder if you're maybe too late to the party. Are listeners still showing up? Are advertisers still paying to advertise on these podcasts? Or has the market gotten so saturated that there's really no room for you in this industry? The truth is, there's really no clear answer to any of those questions. It's all kind of what you make of it. Podcasting in 2025 is not the same industry it was in 2020 or heck, even last year in 2024. Growth looks different, but there is still growth, and we're going to get into it. You just need to be smarter and more strategic about it. So we're going to break this down into 3 different parts today. We're going to get into the current pulse of podcast growth. We're going to talk about how content is evolving past those boom years, and we're going to talk about the new ecosystems shaping the future of audio. So let's get into segment 1. What's the current pulse of podcast growth? So let's start with that big question people ask. Are people still listening to podcasts? If you're just going based on like what you're hearing and what I'm hearing in the industry, yes, people are listening to podcasts. They're more popular than ever. And there's numbers to back that up. According to Q1 and Q2 reports from Nielsen and Edison Research, listenership is still growing, but it's at more of a moderate pace. Instead of those wild pandemic era spikes when we were all stuck at home and had nothing else to do, we're just seeing more like steady and sustainable increases. It isn't this big explosion. So let's put this into an analogy, something we can all understand a little bit better. Think about a podcast as a marathon runner. In the early 2020s, the industry was sprinting. It was full steam ahead. You were right out the gate. You're going. It's almost like a downhill sprint too, where you're just speeding up and speeding up and speeding up. And it was all fueled by lockdowns and lifestyle changes and big platform investments. People were looking at different ways to get online and share their message with people that were stuck at home. But now in 2025, life is pretty much back to normal, and we're seeing the pace settle into something more of like your marathon mode. You're hitting your steady stride that you can sustain for a long time. The runner isn't slowing down because they're tired. It's just because they found the rhythm that they can sustain long term. And that's something I try to tell all of my clients is it doesn't matter how often you release your episodes. It just matters that you can sustain it long term. That's the most important part. So where is the growth coming from then? If we're at that sustained, slow growth, who's listening? Where are these people coming from? The Gen Zers have discovered podcasts. Yes. It's huge in that generation. They're growing up with podcasts in the way that we grew up with our favorite radio shows, our morning talk shows, that sort of thing. It's like how we grew up with YouTube as well, us millennials. Like these are the people that we're going to for our content, for our daily consumption, for our news, for all that stuff. And Gen Z is just so enmeshed with it. They see it as something that's just always been there. It wasn't a new thing for them. It's just what they've always had. Gen Z is really tuning into those short form shows between classes and catching video podcasts on YouTube instead of traditional TV. I can't think of a single Gen Zer I know that has actual TV anymore. They just watch YouTube and whatever streaming services that has their favorite shows. Some other areas that are really exploding in podcast growth right now are non-English speaking markets. Latin America, Southeast Asia, parts of Africa, they're seeing really big growth as mobile data gets cheaper and platforms make big pushes for localized content. If you think of podcasting as just an English language thing, you are way too far inside the box. You're behind. Honestly, you're totally behind. I live in a small area in central Minnesota, and we actually have 3 languages that are spoken in the area, English, and then there's a big Spanish population and there's a big Somali population. So there's languages posted everywhere of different instructions in different languages. And if there's languages being spoken, podcasts are being spoken in those languages. So there's been a huge spike in listenership globally in different languages. So that has caused a huge boom in podcasting as well. On the flip side, there is some churn happening where people are kind of over podcasts and moving on to something else. And that big churn is coming from that 30 to 45 age range. This group signed up for every podcast under the sun when the pandemic hit. They're like, oh my gosh, podcasts. Yes, I'm listening. Yes, give me everything. And now they're kind of overwhelmed by it. They're back to their normal routines. They're heading back into the office and they don't have time for them anymore, quite frankly, because that's also the age group that tends to be raising children that are at a very busy age where they're going to sports and all that sort of stuff. And they're kind of consuming whatever their kids are consuming because the kids are watching it in proximity to them. So the churn is kind of happening from that 30 to 45 age range, dropping off of listening, but those Gen Zs picking up podcast listening. So with that churn happening, it doesn't mean that it's like dropping off or stopping completely. It just means that it's changing and maturing. And that's actually a really good thing. Think about television. I mean, most of us don't subscribe to 50 streaming services. We pick the couple that have our favorite shows, and that's what we stick to. Podcasts are kind of heading the same way. There's opportunity here for people to really make some very niche content that find their exact industry and their exact audience. And I think that's a very beautiful thing. I love to see this industry kind of going from a boom era to more of like a stable, mature era. Think about like when you were a teenager, like you gross. No one wants to go back to that, right? Everything felt chaotic and crazy. Now we're kind of hitting that like mid-20s where you got your job, everything's kind of leveling out. It feels good, feels right. So let's get into the content evolution here. What are people actually listening to and how are creators adapting to make content people want to listen to? Podcasting isn't just one thing anymore. It's so much more than just sitting down with a microphone, hitting record and uploading some audio on some platform somewhere. It used to be that. That was quite the era to be in, but now it's more like storytelling and it's turning into interviews and video versions, and podcasts are being put on traditional streaming platforms and cable networks. It's really turning into something a heck of a lot bigger than what it just initially set out to be. Think about opening your own social media platforms. You're probably seeing 1, 2, if you're really into it, maybe 5 to 10 videos of short form podcast clips, whether that's a small segment of an interview or someone's doing some storytelling or a news recap of some sort. It's kind of like a little snackable, bite-sized version of the podcast that people can share. And then hopefully it triggers that person who sees the short form to go consume the long form. But if it doesn't, it still serves its purpose and gets the word out about whatever brand or story it's trying to share, but in a different format. Podcasting is now on Reels and Shorts and TikTok. It's everywhere. It's not just audio anymore. Now, that doesn't mean that long form is totally dead and you should stop making the full video version. You should only make short little minute-long clips of it. No. Still make it, just repurpose it, use it smarter, get more out of your podcast. In all reality, long form podcasts still dominate when it comes to engagement and loyalty. Shows like Armchair Expert, who we've actually done a case study on, go back and listen to that episode, prove that people will listen to 45 plus minutes of content and still be engaged all the way till the end of the show. But the challenge for new content creators, possibly like you or I, is that we don't have that baked in audience and access to the biggest celebrities in the world to pick their brains. So what do we do to stand out in a sea of people creating long form content? And that's something we might have to get into in a different episode because I could probably go for a while on that. And then there's the ecosystem shift from independent creators switching over to networks or vice versa. You've probably heard of things like Wondery or Mythical, or when we talked about Free with Ads in their case study, they are under the Maximum Fun umbrella. Creators are working with partners to scale up their businesses and their podcasts. And that's a great thing, but it's not going to work for everyone. Not every person is going to be invited to be part of some larger network, but it does appeal to some major brands. And if it works for you, it works for you. That's fantastic. I personally am not part of a network. I don't have any clients that are part of a network, and it's working well for everybody. But if someone came and approached one of my clients and said, hey, we want you on our network, I'm sure they'd be open to talking about it. There's a lot of different changes in how podcasts are being made and produced, whether that's working with an individual producer like myself, doing it yourself, or finding a network to be part of. The ecosystem of podcasting has definitely changed in the past handful of years. Another thing that's kind of changed with podcasting is how you're making money off of it. That's a question I get all the time. How do I make money with podcasting? And it always makes me nervous when that's someone's first question, but different story. Money making with podcasting has definitely evolved just from selling MeUndies ads or Home Chef meals. Like, that's not it anymore. That's not making, I mean, if you're one of the big creators, it might be making you enough money to survive, but creators are really diversifying. You can do subscriptions now on Apple, and you can do buy me a coffees and Patreons to get people early access to shows that they're paying for, bonus content behind the scenes. One of my favorite ways that my clients are monetizing their podcasts is, one, using the show as marketing for a brick and mortar business that already exists, or using it as marketing for an online business that exists. And I think it's really cool when people use their podcast to turn it into a online course that they can then deep dive and share their expertise. They're sharing it very surface level on the show, but then if people want the real guts and meat and here's how I'm doing what I'm doing and here's how you can do it too, they turn their knowledge into an online course, and then they're selling that, and that's how they're monetizing their podcast, is through some sort of other channel. It's not just ads anymore. Now, we've been talking a lot about how podcasting has changed over the past handful of years, but I want to take a look ahead to the future as well, because the next few years of podcasting are going to be shaped by innovation from people like you and me trying different things and seeing what works. I think a big change we're going to see is a lot more live audio experiences. Remember Periscope? That app that was tied to Twitter? It used to like let you go live and just like it had its moment. It was a flash in the pan and then it fizzled. But that idea didn't die. It kind of turned into the live streaming concept on Twitch, and you can go live on YouTube now. There's so many places where you can pick up a phone, set up a camera, and go live and hang out with your audience in real time. And I think that's a really cool thing that's really going to be evolving as it's changing every single day. I swear I can't open up the TikTok live section without having to totally relearn it every single time. But I think we're going to see that kind of evolve into podcasting, whether that's recording the show live and letting people be part of a live audience, or they just take it after the fact and share it somewhere as long form content to be consumed. I think the live audio landscape is going to be changing the podcasting landscape as well. Another thing that I want to touch on when it comes to looking ahead in the world of podcasting is the world of AI and generative AI in production. This is where things just get so wild. AI is now handling all the tedious parts of podcast production. It can write you transcripts, and it can cut the best parts out and make reels, and it can change how you're saying a certain word if you stumble over something. It can help you maintain eye contact and look directly at the camera. There is so much going on with AI and creating videos and audio. And I, for one, welcome our robot overlords. I think that this is great. It makes my life easier as a podcast producer. Now, you can't totally rely on it. Like the one-click podcast editing software, it's not going to be perfect. It's going to sound really bad, actually. It's going to sound super choppy and weird, and you might be missing some key elements, but it is a great place to start. It's a time saver on that end. You do have to go in and fix things and make it sound exactly how you want it to, but in the grand scheme of things, it is a great assistant to have. It is not a replacement. It is a tool. It is an assistant to make your life easier when it comes to making your podcast. And it seems like they just keep updating things every day. I subscribe to Riverside and Descript, both of them, and I feel like at least once a week, I'm getting an email from one of them about new AI features that they're unlocking for people to use when it comes to making podcasts. I am really excited for where the world is going with AI as a podcasting tool. And the last thing I want to touch on when it comes to the future of podcasting is I just think it's important to point out that your podcast is more than just a podcast. It has changed so much. Your podcast can now be the base of everything that you do, from generating email newsletter content to creating clips online to static images to Pinterest content to blogs. One podcast can be turned into a multitude of different things. And I'm really excited to see what else a podcast can evolve into for people. And I think that it's just going to keep expanding and expanding and expanding. I don't think that there's going to be any limit to that. So let's wrap it up here. Is podcasting still growing in 2025? Absolutely it is, but it's not like the skyrocketing numbers boom that we saw in the pandemic. The growth is steady, The growth is global and it's more intentional. And I think that is what's going to sustain this industry for a very long time. The industry has matured, and that is a beautiful thing to be a part of and to witness. And I can't wait to see what the next step in this maturity journey is, because I think that we're all going to see a lot of success the longer we can stick it out and the more we can adapt. Like, we can't just keep doing the same thing over and over because that's what worked a couple years ago. We have to be willing to change and adapt and mature with the industry when it comes to making our own shows. So do what you got to do. Experiment with your format, long form, short form, video, written version, blogs, Pinterest. Take your show and chunk it up and make it into everything that it possibly can be, because that's where you're going to see success in the podcasting industry. The future of audio isn't about whether or not podcasting is over or people are done with it. It's about how we as creators adapt to this changing landscape. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today on this episode. I really appreciate it. If you've enjoyed this conversation, share it with a friend. Please leave a 5-star rating and review. It helps a ton. Give it a thumbs up if you're watching the YouTube version of it. And if you're looking for help with creating your podcast, whether that's in the form of a producer or you're looking for someone to help you and guide you along the way, I am here. You can check me out at abbygravesproductions.com. I got links in the show notes as well. Until next time, keep creating. Don't be afraid to try new things. And yes, podcasting is growing.